Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. Okay, for today we will continue on from our last class, which is Introduction to Statistical Method. Okay, so for today I'm going to explain about the sampling technique. Okay, so basically there are two types of sampling. First, we call it as probability sampling, and the second one is non-probability sampling. Okay. So under probability sampling, there will be four main technique. First, we call it as simple random sampling, SRS. Yang kedua is systematic sampling. Yang ketiga, stratified sampling. Yang keempat, cluster sampling. Okay, for non-probability sampling, there will be quota sampling, convenience sampling, judgmental sampling, and snowball sampling. Okay, so what is the difference between these two sampling design, okay, between probability and non-probability? Okay, so we look into probability first. So probability sampling, okay, all elements should have equal chances of being selected as a sample. Okay, so tendency of every element in the population to be selected as a sample will be equal, whereas for non-probability, the element have unequal chances of being selected as sample. Okay, number two, the probability sampling technique will be used when representativeness of the sample is of importance to the study. Okay, whereas for non-probability, result of study are not applicable to population, which is generalization is not allowed. Okay, so if we want to ensure that the conclusion that will be gathered from the data that we have select will represent the population, then you should apply or use probability sampling, because when we use the probability sampling technique, the decision or the output from the research that we have done, we can conclude to the whole population. Okay, whereas for the non-probability, we cannot make conclusion for the whole population. The conclusion only suitable to the selected sample only. Okay, and then the third one, the result are applicable to the population. Okay, same thing lah with the point number 2. Okay, for non-probability, it is widely used in a study where no generalization concerning the population needs to be made. Okay, so let's take a look into the probability sampling technique first. Okay, the first one is simple random sampling, or SRS. Okay, so the criteria for SRS is each element has known and equal chances of being selected as a sample. Okay, then each element is selected independently of every other element. Okay, dia tak berkait di antara satu sama lain lah. Okay, sample is drawn randomly using table of random number or computer to generate a random number, or by using lucky draw or lottery method. Okay, and then the third characteristic of SRS, the target population must be homogeneous. Homogeneous here means it sharing the same characteristic. Okay, your population should share the same characteristic. For example, let's say I'm focusing on the final year student of diploma in mathematical sciences. Okay, so final year student is referring to the part 5 student, okay, which is they shares the same characteristic. Okay, maksudnya contohnya part 5 student ni dia ambil bilangan subjek yang sama. Okay, contohlah the first characteristic. So that is mean by the homogeneous. Okay, so we can look into the advantage and disadvantages of this method. Okay, this method has advantages of least bias, most generalizable, and relatively easy to do. So sample random sampling is very easy to conduct. Okay, let's take a look into the example. Okay, Amar Agency wants to assess clients' view about their satisfaction on the service provided by the agency in terms of speed of the service and hours of operation. The agency has a list of name of all clients for last month in their record. The total number of client is 20. Okay, so how to choose a 5 client for the 20 clients by using SRS technique. Okay, so the step are as follows. Okay, first you should have the list of clients name, okay, which is our sampling frame. So kita dah ada list name of all clients for last month, okay. And then number 2, give each client a number starting from 01 to 20. Okay, kita numberkan setiap clients tu 1 hingga 20. Okay, macam mana cara dia? Print each number on separate paper and place the number in a box and pull out a number until you get a 5 different number. So the 5 number represent the sample client that will be asked about their views. Okay, let's say kita dah ada number 1 hingga 20, kita letak dalam kotak. Okay, and then awak pun pilihlah 5. Okay, macam buat lucky draw tu. Okay, so katakan nama yang pertama, referring to the list name number 15. Okay, nama yang kedua kita cabut, kita dapat nombor 3. Yang keempat dapat nombor 9. Yang kelima dapat nombor 19 katakan. Okay, so that client with that respective number will be your sample. Kita akan tanya dekat customer tu lah. Okay. Okay, number 2. Number 2 is systematic sampling. Okay, involve drawing every kth element in the population, starting with a randomly chosen element between 1 and k. So k is our sampling interval. Okay, you can look at the advantages and disadvantages for this sampling technique. Okay, so the advantages first, it was more efficient than simple random sampling. But the disadvantages, the results are biased. Okay, if there is a recurring pattern within a list, for example, data are arranged by month. Okay, number 2, the advantages. Like random selection, if the starting point in list is randomly chosen. Okay, again in systematic sampling, the randomization still will be applied. Okay, but the disadvantages, impossible to conduct without sampling frame. Okay, so kalau tak ada list of your sample, it's quite impossible to conduct systematic sampling. Okay, and then the third advantages, it's easier to implement simple random rather than simple random sampling. Okay, so look at the example. Okay, a study is to be conducted with a total population of 500 houses in section 10 Shah Alam. A sample of 50 houses is needed in the study. So how to obtain the sample? Okay, so let's say you first, okay, kita dah tahu dah our target population is 500. So you need to label each house with a number from 1 to 500. Okay, so how to determine your sampling interval, or K. Okay, so the formula for K is equivalent to total population, capital N, divided by total sample, small n. So our capital N is 500 and our sample needed is 50. So your K will be 500 divided by 50. So we get 10. Okay, and then you need to select a random number from 1 to 10. Okay, so select every 10 numbers starting from the selected random number in step 3. Okay, for example, katakan 1 hingga 10 tu kita pun cabut lah. Okay, katakan dapat nombor 7. Okay, so your starting number for your to select the sample should be number 7, and then kita tambah 10. 7 tambah 10 dapat 17, tambah 10 lagi 27, tambah 10 lagi 37, tambah 10 lagi 47, dan last sekali kita akan dapat 497. So maksudnya look at your list yang 500 rumah tu kan. So kita akan choose elemen yang ke-7 ataupun nombor rumah yang ke-7 17, 27, 30 dan seterusnya. Okay, so another application for systematic sampling, like selecting every 5th invoice or customer account, interviewing every 10 customer of a store, inspecting every 20th item on a production line. Okay, number 3, look into the stratified sampling. Okay, elements within the population. Okay, kita tengok dulu dia punya karakteristik dia. Element within a population may be expected to have different characteristics which of interest to the researcher. Stratified sampling involves a process of partitioning the population into mutually exclusive group called strata. Element within a strata should be as homogeneous as possible, but strata themselves should be as heterogeneous as possible. Next, elements are selected at random from each stratum. Okay, so the objective is to increase a precision without increasing cost. Okay, you can look into the advantage and disadvantages. But first thing, kita nak tengok dulu dia punya example. Okay, top service agency want to assess clients' view about the quality of the service last year. Okay, regarding the speed of service and hours of operation. Okay, so they have a group of client, okay, with respect to Malay, Chinese and Indian. Okay, so Malay dia ada 40, Chinese, Malay we have 50, Chinese we have 40, and Indian we have 10. Okay, the agency want to choose a sample of 10 clients. Okay, so how to choose the clients? By using stratified sampling. Okay, so Malay, Chinese and Indian ni is, we call it as a strata or group lah. Okay, why we call it as strata? Okay, so tengok karakteristik yang pertama tadi, dia kata element within the population may be expected to have a different characteristic. Okay, so karakteristik dia kat sini adalah different races lah. Okay, so apa yang perlu kita buat? We are partitioned into mutually exclusive group called strata. Okay, so Malay, Chinese and Indian ni we call it as mutually exclusive strata or groups. Okay, yang mana Malay ni dia punya karakteristik dia must be homogeneous. Homogeneous means they share the same characteristic. Okay, so kalau Malay ni kita tahu dia punya, orang Melayu ni cara pemakaian dia sama, dia punya makanan dia sama, betul tak? Okay, within the Malay lah. Okay, Chinese pula, okay, cara pakaian dia berbeza dengan antara Melayu dan Indian. Okay, sama juga makanan dia pun lain, sama juga macam India. So dalam elemen dalam races tu, Malay tu karakteristik dia sama. Group Malay tu within the group were sharing the same characteristic, but between Malay, Chinese and Indian they were heterogeneous. Okay, between they are heterogeneous, but within they are homogeneous. Okay, so sekarang ni kita nak choose 10 clients. Okay, so step dia, kita dah divide into 3 groups. Okay, so we need to calculate the sample size for each group. Okay, since tadi kita dah tahu dah total semua adalah 100. Okay, now kita nak tahu daripada Malay berapa yang kita perlu pilih, daripada Chinese berapa, daripada Indian berapa. Okay, cara dia adalah, so we take a look into the total of Malay. So we have 50, divide by total, grand total 100, and then we times to 10. 10 is the sample yang kita perlukan. Okay, so we will get 5. Okay, and then repeat the same step. So kita Chinese, kita ada total 40 over 100 times 10. So we get 4. Indian pun sama, we get 1. Okay, so kita dah ada list dah untuk Malay, Chinese and Indian ni. Okay, And then daripada 50 Malay tu kita akan pilih 5, Chinese 4, Indian 1. So cara nak pilih 5 sampel ni, kita akan apply sample random sampling. So nanti kita dapatlah total semua 10 betul tak? Tadi memang kita nak sampel 10 pun. Okay, now into cluster sampling. Okay, cluster sampling, a technique in which the population of interest is divided into group called cluster. Okay, next, a random sample of cluster is selected based on a probability sampling technique such as simple random sampling. Okay, for each cluster selected, either all the elements are included in the sample or sample of element is drawn probabilistically. Used when we must sample a population that is dispersed across a wide geographic region. Okay, element within the cluster should be heterogeneous as possible, but cluster themselves should be as homogeneous as possible. The reverse of what we find in stratified sampling. Okay, kalau stratified, kita ada Malay, Chinese, Indian. Okay, between strata ni tadi saya kata dia mesti heterogeneous kan. Malay ni dia homogeneous, Chinese homogeneous, Indian homogeneous. Tapi between dia are heterogeneous. Okay, tapi beza pula dengan cluster ni pula. Dia terbalik. Kita ada cluster 1, 2, 3. Katakan 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yang satu ni dia hetero. Tapi between 1 dan 2, 2 dan 3, they are homogeneous. Okay, contohnya, okay, katakan kita ada rumah flat lah. Contoh dia ada 10 tingkat. Okay. So, setiap tingkat ni ada banyak rumah, betul tak? Okay, katakan kat sini, tingkat yang pertama ada Malay, Chinese, Indian. Tingkat yang kedua pun sama, Malay, Chinese, Indian campur. Tingkat yang ketiga dan seterusnya, semua tingkat. So, Malay, Chinese, Indian. Okay, so kita boleh kata dekat tingkat yang pertama ni dia adalah heterogeneous. Dekat dalam tu ada bermacam-macam kaum yang tinggal. Sama juga. Tingkat yang kedua pun sama, ada Malay, Chinese, Indian. So they are heterogeneous. Tapi sifat antara tingkat 1, tingkat 2 dan tingkat 3 they are homogeneous. Homogeneous ni maksudnya apa? Tingkat yang pertama ni dia multiracial. Tingkat yang kedua pun multiracial. Tingkat yang ketiga pun multiracial. So between tingkat dia adalah homogeneous. Jenis dia sama, jenis yang multiracial. But within the level 1 dia adalah heterogeneous. Okay, so dia berbeza dengan cluster. Strata. Okay, look at an example. Okay, I'm an agency want to assess potential client view about the agency. Okay, sama jugalah. Since the agency is in Perlis, all household in Perlis are considered as their potential client. Okay, so kat Perlis dia ada 3 je dia punya katakan area, Kanga, Arau dan Padang Besar. Okay, so Kanga, Arau dan Padang Besar ni kita punya cluster lah, cluster Kanga, Arau dan Padang Besar. So between Kanga, Arau dan Padang Besar ni they are heterogeneous. Okay, kat Kanga ni ada Melayu, ada Cina, ada India. Dekat Arau pun ada Melayu, ada Cina, ada India. Padang Besar pun sama. So they are sifat dekat dalam dia adalah heterogeneous, tapi between dia adalah homogeneous. Okay, so sekarang ni dia nak pilih antara Kanga, Arau atau Padang Besar. Okay, so dia pun gunalah teknik simple random sampling. Dia buat 1, 2, 3. 1 Kanga, 2 Arau, 3 Padang Besar. Okay, dia pun cabalah, dapat area Kanga katakan. Okay, so the whole people in Kanga will be your sample. Okay, so Arau yang Padang Besar kita tak perlu pilih lah, sebab tadi kita dah, yang area yang terpilih adalah Kanga.